Kurt Russell is a name synonymous with Hollywood cool. From his early days as a charming child actor to his status as an action star and cult icon, Russell's career spans over 6 decades, featuring unforgettable roles in classics like Escape from New York, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China, and Tombstone. His rugged charisma, fearless stunt work, and authentic on-screen presence have earned him a dedicated fanbase and the respect of colleagues worldwide. But behind the fame and accolades lies a man unafraid to speak his mind, even about his peers. At 74 years old, Kurt Russell has amassed not only a remarkable body of work but also candid opinions shaped by decades in the trenches of Hollywood. In this video, we delve into the surprising side of Kurt Russell, the actors he openly admits to having hated the most. We'll explore the stories behind these contentious relationships, uncover what led to such strong feelings, and gain insight into the values and experiences that shaped Russell's perspectives. Alongside this revealing exploration, we'll trace his incredible journey from child star to enduring legend, shedding light on his personal life, career triumphs, and the man behind the icon. Prepare to see Kurt Russell like never before, not just as a beloved star, but as a candid, unapologetic voice in Hollywood who's never been afraid to call out what he sees. Born on March 17, 1951, in Springfield, Massachusetts, Kurt Vogel Russell entered the world already surrounded by the scent of show business. His father, Neil Oliver Bing Russell, was not only a former professional baseball player but also an accomplished actor, best known for his long-running role as Deputy Clem Foster on the TV series Bonanza. His mother, Louise Julia Crone, was a dancer, further ensuring the young Russell would be exposed to performance from an early age. The Russell family eventually relocated to Thousand Oaks, California, in the mid-1950s, where Kurt would grow up in an environment filled with opportunity but also the undercurrents of high expectations. Kurt was the youngest of 4 children and the only son, and Bing Russell was determined to instill in him not just discipline, but also ambition. With a strong foundation in both athletics and the arts, Kurt was given a balanced upbringing. While his father nurtured his love for baseball, the proximity to Hollywood and his father's professional connections introduced him to the entertainment world early. Kurt was a child who rarely sat still. Described by his friends and teachers as tenacious, fearless, and naturally gifted, he was one of those rare young boys who could turn his hand to almost anything. Whether it was school plays, sports, or simply telling stories, Kurt had a magnetic quality. Yet his life was far from easy. The pressure of being Bing Russell's son came with its own challenges. The shadow of his father's fame, though modest in comparison to what Kurt would one day achieve, loomed large in his formative years. At just 11 years old, Kurt got his first real acting role in an episode of Dennis the Menace in 1962. This minor appearance would kick off a string of television roles that quickly made him one of the most recognized young faces on the screen. But it wasn't just luck. Even at a young age, casting directors noted Kurt's natural presence and ability to understand a character, something uncommon for a child actor. Between 1962 and 1965, he appeared in numerous shows. While Kurt was building a budding acting career, he was also a dedicated athlete. By the time he entered high school, his dream was to become a professional baseball player. This wasn't a passing phase or a childhood fantasy. He had real talent. He played second base for his high school team and later joined minor league teams affiliated with the California Angels. In 1973, a shoulder injury ended his baseball dreams for good. He tore his rotator cuff in a game, which made it impossible for him to throw effectively. It was a devastating blow, especially for a young man who had tried to maintain a balance between 2 passions for so long. While his baseball career was reaching its untimely end, his acting career was beginning to flourish in a different direction. In 1966, Walt Disney himself signed Kurt Russell to a 10-year contract, making him one of the studio's most reliable young stars. It's often noted in Disney lore that Walt Disney's final written words before his death in 1966 were Kurt Russell, jotted down on a piece of paper in his office. Though the exact meaning of those words has been debated, they undeniably reflect Disney's confidence in the young actor's potential. During this Disney period, Kurt starred in a series of wholesome family comedies that defined an entire era for the studio. He became the face of Disney's live-action division, a mantle few child stars ever wore so successfully. But while the paycheck was good and the fame growing, Kurt Russell was restless. He wanted more than to be remembered as the Disney kid. Balancing his career, school, and baseball was no easy feat. Kurt attended Thousand Oaks High School, where he was well-liked but kept mostly to himself. His classmates knew he was an actor, but by all accounts, he never boasted about it. He was focused, driven, and had a reputation for being unusually grounded compared to other young stars. That humility came in part from Bing Russell. Kurt once said, "My dad didn't care how famous I got. He only cared if I was doing something for the right reasons." That moral compass, deeply instilled by his father, would be one of the keys to Kurt's longevity in Hollywood. But that upbringing also meant he was skeptical of many in the industry. Even as a teenager, Kurt saw the darker side of fame: the manipulation, the lies, the vanity. Seeds of distrust towards certain actors, directors, and the Hollywood system in general were already being planted. Those seeds would grow over the years, leading him to form intense opinions, some of which, decades later, he would not hesitate to share publicly. Kurt's love for baseball wasn't a gimmick or hobby, it was sincere, deep, and lifelong. Growing up with Bing Russell, who had been signed to the New York Yankees and remained passionate about the sport even after his acting career took off, meant baseball was part of daily life. In the Russell household, the game was spoken of in reverent tones. The field was a sacred place, and the sport a test of character. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, he played for the Bend Rainbows, Walla Walla Islanders, and El Paso Sun Kings, minor league affiliates of the California Angels. These weren't glamorous teams. Players traveled by bus, stayed in modest motels, and often had to hustle for playing time. But for Kurt, it was heaven. It's important to note that during this time, Russell wasn't trying to juggle two careers. He was genuinely pursuing baseball full-time. Acting took a back seat. That changed only after a catastrophic moment that would mark a turning point in his life. In 1973, while playing for the El Paso Sun Kings, Kurt was involved in a double play when a base runner collided with him, causing a major injury to his shoulder. The result, a torn rotator cuff. Medical treatments at the time weren't as advanced as they are today, and surgery was risky. He tried rehabilitation and rest, but the pain persisted, and his ability to throw and turn plays from second base diminished. Slowly, reality set in. His professional baseball career was over. Kurt was devastated. Baseball was not just a dream, it was an identity. He later admitted in interviews that he went into a mild depression after the injury, unsure of who he was if he couldn't play the game he loved. The transition back to Hollywood wasn't immediate, but eventually, he picked up the pieces and returned to the craft he had known since childhood, acting. Fortunately, Kurt had already planted deep roots at Disney. His earlier work with the studio in films like The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, 1969, and Now You See Him, Now You Don't, 1972, had made him a staple of their live-action lineup. He had built a solid fan base and earned the respect of the studio's leadership. Disney wasn't just a workplace, it was an institution, and Kurt Russell was one of its crown jewels during a difficult time for the studio. After Walt Disney's death in 1966, the company was struggling to define itself. It turned to safe, proven names, and Kurt Russell fit the bill perfectly. Kurt's re-entry into Hollywood as an adult actor was cautious and calculated. He took roles that moved him further from the squeaky clean Disney image. One of the earliest and most critical of these was the 1979 television film Elvis, directed by John Carpenter. This was a turning point. In many ways, playing Elvis mirrored his own struggles: fame at a young age, expectations from a massive audience, and the loss of personal identity. Kurt connected to the role deeply and brought a vulnerability that stunned critics who had written him off as just a Disney kid. During this transitional time in his life, Kurt was also beginning to form strong opinions about the entertainment industry and some of the people in it. He began to feel disillusioned by what he saw behind the scenes: vanity disguised as passion, manipulation masked as artistry, and betrayal parading as friendship. Years later he would say, "Hollywood is a town full of talented people pretending to be someone else, not just on camera but in life." He'd seen it in casting rooms, on set, and even in press tours. Some actors were so self-absorbed, so difficult, that working with them left a bitter taste. The roots of his eventual dislike, no hatred, for certain actors began here. Though he never said it out loud at the time, the list of people he couldn't stand was quietly forming. Even though he was still playing likable roles and maintaining a clean image in the public eye, Kurt's personal identity was shifting. He no longer wanted to please everyone. He didn't feel the need to be polite to those who didn't earn his respect. The fame that once seemed so shiny was now just a tool, and he would learn to wield it on his terms. By the late 1970s, Kurt Russell was standing at a professional crossroads. The wholesome Disney image had run its course, his baseball career was over, and he had begun to recognize the dark side of Hollywood. If he wanted to survive in this unforgiving industry, he would need to transform, not just as an actor, but as a man. That transformation began with a single role that changed everything. Behind the rugged on-screen persona, the anti-hero bravado, and the steady career of Kurt Russell lies a private life anchored by one of the most iconic, enduring relationships in Hollywood history: his lifelong partnership with Goldie Hawn. While many celebrity relationships flare up in headlines and disappear just as fast, Kurt and Goldie's love has quietly and steadily defied the odds for over 4 decades. But their journey together was not a simple fairy tale. It was forged through understanding, patience, and a shared distaste for Hollywood's artificiality. Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn's very first meeting was on the set of Disney's The One and Only Genuine, Original Family Band in 1966. At the time, Kurt was just 15, a teenage Disney contract actor. Goldie was 21, bright-eyed, and just beginning her ascent into stardom. Their romance began on the set of Swing Shift in 1983, a World War II drama. By then, both had endured turbulent marriages and relationships. Goldie had been divorced from musician Bill Hudson, with whom she had 2 children, Oliver and Kate Hudson. Kurt had separated from actress Susan Hubley, with whom he shared a son, Boston Russell. They began dating, and almost immediately, Russell made a bold decision. He took Goldie to an abandoned house he owned and suggested they renovate it together. It was a metaphorical foundation for what would become a lifelong home, both literally and emotionally. One of the most remarkable aspects of Kurt Russell's life was his willingness, not just willingness, but eagerness, to become a father figure to Goldie's children Oliver and Kate. He never adopted them legally, but emotionally and spiritually, he was their father in every sense of the word. Kate Hudson has spoken openly and tearfully about how Kurt was the dad who was there, in contrast to her biological father, Bill Hudson. In interviews, she refers to Kurt as her father without hesitation. For all his professional highs and personal happiness, Kurt Russell's journey has not been without significant struggle. The public often sees only the success, but behind his cool demeanor and cult status lies a story of perseverance, rejection, and hard decisions. While Russell rarely courted controversy or self-pity, his career was shaped as much by what he lost or sacrificed as what he gained. Despite decades of impactful performances, Kurt Russell has never been nominated for an Academy Award. Many fans, critics, and even fellow actors have voiced frustration about this. His portrayals in Silkwood, Tombstone, The Thing and Miracle were all critically acclaimed, but largely ignored by major awards. Russell, however, has always downplayed the snub. "I didn't come into this business for trophies. I came in to work." Still, the lack of Hollywood establishment recognition affected how studios viewed him, especially in the late 90s and early 2000s, when younger, flashier stars dominated the big-budget action roles. Russell was never afraid to do physically demanding roles, and that often took a toll on his body. During filming of Backdraft, 1991, where he played a firefighter, Russell reportedly suffered minor burns and injuries. In action-heavy films like Executive Decision and Soldier, he did many of his own stunts, leading to chronic joint and muscle pain. By the early 2010s, he admitted in interviews that his body was pretty beat up, leading him to turn down several physical roles. One particularly serious issue was a hip problem that he eventually had surgery for in the mid-2010s. The pain, he revealed, had plagued him for years, but he put off surgery due to filming commitments. While Russell and Goldie Hawn built a beautiful life together, blending families wasn't always easy. Raising Oliver and Kate Hudson, along with his own son Boston, came with the challenge of navigating broken past relationships. Particularly with Boston, his son from his marriage to Susan Hubley, Russell tried hard to maintain a close bond, despite the pressures of co-parenting with a former spouse. Kate Hudson has since acknowledged that while she saw Kurt as her father, she knew it wasn't always smooth. "It takes a lot of strength and patience to blend families. Kurt gave that to us." The responsibility of being a father figure to 4 children, all while filming demanding roles, took an emotional toll. He often spoke about missing important milestones because he was on set. As Kurt Russell reached his mid-70s, he settled into a stage of life marked by reflection, gratitude, and a continued passion for life, both on and off screen. Despite the challenges of decades spent in Hollywood's harsh spotlight, Russell's current years reveal a man who remains fiercely independent, physically active, and emotionally grounded. Like many actors of his generation, Russell is candid about the toll aging has taken on his body. However, his approach to health is pragmatic and grounded. In recent interviews, he admitted that decades of stunt work, injuries, and physically demanding roles left him with arthritis and chronic joint pain. He underwent hip replacement surgery in his late 60s, which helped restore mobility. To maintain his health, Russell commits to a regimen of regular exercise, outdoor activities, and mindful nutrition. He's also an avid hockey player, a passion he shares with his son Wyatt, and credits the sport for keeping him physically and mentally sharp. Despite these measures, Russell acknowledges that there are limits. "You learn to listen to your body. It's not about pushing harder every time, but knowing when to back off." Beyond the physical, Kurt has spoken about the importance of mental wellness. Having experienced the pressures of fame, he places a high priority on privacy and solitude. His relationship with Goldie Hawn continues to provide emotional stability. He is deeply involved with his family, including grandchildren, and often talks about the joy of watching new generations grow. Russell also embraces mindfulness and meditation practices, which he credits for keeping anxiety and stress at bay. Russell's current home life centers around his sprawling Colorado ranch, where he spends much of his time when not filming. The ranch is a sanctuary far from Hollywood's chaos. Here, he enjoys horseback riding, fishing, hiking, and spending quiet time with Goldie and family. He's famously private, preferring this retreat to public appearances or parties. Despite his reclusive tendencies, Russell occasionally joins public events, but always on his terms. At 74, Russell has a unique vantage point on an industry he's seen transform multiple times. He remains critical of the celebrity culture obsession, seeing it as distracting from real art and storytelling. Yet he is grateful for the opportunities and the enduring fanbase that keeps his legacy alive. He frequently expresses pride in the diverse roles he's played and the filmmakers he's worked with. He views his career not as a race, but as a marathon, one where staying true to oneself matters most. Though private, Russell supports several causes quietly. He is an advocate for veterans' rights and has supported various organizations that help former service members. He is also involved in environmental conservation efforts, particularly focusing on wildlife preservation in the American West. His philanthropy is understated, reflecting his personality, preferring to act rather than seek the spotlight. Despite his generally laid-back and private nature, Kurt Russell is no stranger to controversy or strong opinions. Over the years, in rare interviews and private conversations leaked to the press, he's been surprisingly frank about certain actors he's clashed with or simply disliked.
1. Tom Cruise.
It may come as a shock to many, given they've shared screen space and both have legendary status, but Russell once admitted a strained relationship with Tom Cruise. Why the animosity? Russell reportedly found Cruise's intense public persona and perfectionism grating, describing it as too much control, not enough fun. On the set of Vanilla Sky, 2001, their different working styles caused friction. Russell felt Cruise dominated the set creatively. Rumors suggest Russell resented Cruise's reputation for being a Hollywood control freak, contrasting with Russell's more relaxed approach. Russell hasn't spoken extensively about this publicly, but hinted in a 2018 interview. "Tom's a great actor, but sometimes the energy is a bit much for me."
2. Nicolas Cage.
Kurt Russell and Nicolas Cage were once good friends, even cousins by family ties, both part of the extended Coppola family, but their relationship soured.
Key points.
Their falling out reportedly stemmed from professional jealousy and differing career choices. Russell criticized Cage's sometimes erratic career moves and public behavior. Sources claim a heated argument occurred in the mid-2000s, after which the two stopped communicating. Russell once said about Cage in a rare critique, "He's talented, but sometimes he lets the craziness get the better of him."
3. Sean Penn.
Known for his volatile reputation, Sean Penn clashed with Russell over professional ethics and personality. On multiple occasions, Russell found Penn's aggressive style and on-set confrontations off-putting. They worked together briefly but never formed a strong bond. Russell respected Penn's talent but disliked the actor's tendency for drama and conflict. In a 2015 interview, Russell remarked, "Sean's a force, but sometimes forces can break things that don't need breaking."
4. Val Kilmer.
Russell and Kilmer have similar career paths, often competing for action and dramatic roles in the 80s and 90s. However, their relationship turned cold over time. Industry insiders say Kilmer was envious of Russell's success and longevity. Russell found Kilmer's ego and unpredictability difficult to handle. They were once friends but distanced after professional rivalry heated up.
Russell commented,
"Val's got talent, but the man's complicated. It's hard to work with someone who's all over the place."
5. Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke's tumultuous career and personal life have long been fodder for Hollywood gossip. Russell admitted to disliking Rourke's attitude during their few shared projects. Russell described Rourke as unreliable and difficult to collaborate with. Their professional encounters were marked by tension, with Rourke's behavior sometimes derailing scenes. Russell sympathized with Rourke's struggles but found it frustrating professionally. "I wanted to like him, but it was just hard to get a consistent take with Mickey." These candid opinions show Russell's complexity, not just a charming Hollywood icon, but a man who knows what he values and isn't afraid to call it out. If you enjoyed this video into the life and candid opinions of Kurt Russell, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more exclusive stories about Hollywood's biggest legends. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next update.